Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we're breaking down the Los Angeles Rams 2024 offseason. We're going to go over all the departures, the acquisitions, and also kind of review their draft picks. At the very end of the video, we're going to break down the 2024 schedule and give our record predictions for the season. So you're going to want to stay tuned for the entire video. Before we get into that, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also tackle that bell to get notified when new videos come out. We have videos coming out every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then when the season starts, we're going to have weekly prediction videos for all the Rams games. And you're not going to want to miss those. So like, subscribe, ring that bell. Ryan, thanks for pulling this slide up here. So these are the 2023 team statistics for the Los Angeles Rams. We broke it up to offensive and defensive, and we got these numbers from Pro Football Reference. So it's right off the bat. I mean, Rams had just an amazing offense last year. We'll have to see how his career pans out. There's been a lot of one-hit wonders, but Puka Nacua, you can make an argument be one of the top steals of the NFL draft come the end of his career if he has a phenomenal career. I know.
Yeah.
It was a rookie season, but still. The dude was so amazing. Even in that first game, you're like, how did this guy drop to the 5th round? Yeah, it just with how quick he was, how easy he could go and create his own separation. Him and Matt Stafford had a great connection. Then when Cooper Kupp came back in, I think this year's only going to keep getting better. And so I hope so too. He's on my dynasty team. So defensively, though, and these numbers kind of check out as well. I think the biggest thing is they did have a little bit drop, like they're a little bit below average on the sacks. I think they had a decent defensive line. I mean, having Aaron Donald is going to be huge for the team just in general. But I think the best example of just the weaknesses for this team was the Detroit Lions playoff game. Their secondary, I think, just got eaten alive by that Detroit Lions offense. Lions had one of the best offenses in the league, to be completely fair, but they just could not stop the very dynamic offense as a whole from Detroit, but especially too in the passing game as well. And that thing to me was the biggest thing that they needed to improve going into the 2024 season.
Yeah, that pass rush was definitely outside of Aaron Donald, definitely lacking. And I think before we get into the departures, Aaron Donald did retire. He is not with the team. And so I think you look at that aspect of kind of where this team is moving forward. It will be kind of interesting to see how they evolve. Offensively, I thought they did a really good job. I will say when Kyron Williams was in, this was a top 5 offense in the league. They did struggle, actually, when he was out. This running game just didn't have the same oomph. Teams were able to kind of play off and definitely cover the middle of the field better in the passing game. So that definitely limited Puka Nacua's production and Cooper Kupp as well. Just being able to have an extra body or two, it dropped back into the secondary. So all in all, a really solid 2023 for the Los Angeles Rams. I think looking back on it, we were pretty low on this team. We thought they would still kind of be rebuilding, but I definitely think they arrived and are doing better last year, as last year showed. So let's move on to their departures here.
I will say one thing just real quick about the defense. And so that's where I think on the defensive line, I think they were okay and young and improving outside of Aaron Donald. Like Kobe Turner had 9 sacks, Byron Young had 8 sacks. They're 24 and 25. Yeah. Michael Hoke, outside linebacker, had 6 sacks. I think in general, like there was a good diversity. Maybe would want to get a couple of those guys in the double digits. Aaron Donald had 8. I think it was I think then there was some of them still the weaknesses in the secondary, I think. But we'll get to that here in a second once we go to their depth chart. But the big names to me on the guys that are departing, obviously Carson Wentz, major loss. I'm just joking. But Coleman Shelton, their starting center, and then Jordan Fuller as well, who's one of the starting safeties. Both of them played vast majority of snaps last season. Yeah. So just some starting players that have moved on. And then another thing then too as well is just a couple of spots, and this will be the trend of we're going to talk to here when we get to acquisitions as well. But moved on from a couple of guys here in the secondary department. As I previously mentioned, Jordan Fuller moved on, yes, but Akil Witherspoon and John Johnson, as of the recording of this video, are still also free agents as well. So I think that to me, I think is going to be the shift as well. It kind of one of the main things I think that they were wanting to address in this offseason was trying to get better in the secondary.
Yeah, and then also, not that I think these are huge losses, but Ben Skronek and Austin Trammell Both of those guys left that wide receiver room. They didn't need them in that wide receiver room at all. And then other than that, just some depth pieces there as well. So let's move on to acquisitions here. So starting off on the offensive side of the ball, adding Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup quarterback, getting Colby Parkinson from Seattle, getting Jonah Jackson, Laryl Murchison on is that a D tackle? Yeah, D tackle.
Yeah.
Christian Roseboom, Trey White, Darius Williams, Cameron Curl, and then Boston Scott there to kind of close it out. So not a lot of like really big free agency signings. Interested, I think they went definitely more of like the former All-Stars that have fallen off maybe due to injury a little bit in like Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey White guys. So I think it'll be interesting where these guys fit in. But all in all, I think going out and getting some good experience was good for this team.
Yeah, and so I think then as well, just sticking with the free agent signing before we go to the draft picks, but again, Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila is going to kick over to center, so I really like Jonah Jackson slot in there. I believe it will be the left guard. I'll confirm that here in a second. But I like the secondary signings of Tre'Davious White, Darius Williams, and Cameron Curl. To your point, they're on the latter half of their prime, but I still think they could provide some good valuable minutes. I think Tre'Davious White, if he can stay healthy, I think it's still a really good corner. He's just really struggled with injuries these past couple of years. So he only played in 17% of the snaps last year for the Bills before he moved on, before he got hurt. So I think that's going to be a big thing. Draft pick wise, getting Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, both come from Florida State. I think they both worked pretty well together during their time there, especially Florida State had one of the best defenses last year. So I think just bringing them along as well is probably going to be a good tandem. I think to kind of keep bolstering up that defensive line, keep adding on to that young talent that is already there, and keep building around them. And so as I'd mentioned previously in the beginning, there are some good guys that are already there that were establishing themselves. So I think keep bringing it in, keep bringing the reinforcements coming. Then I do like the Blake Corum and then Cameron Kitchens pick as well. I think just get a little bit more consistency just in case if Kyron Williams does go down. Also, I think they can develop into a good 1-2 running back tandem, in my opinion.
Yeah. No. I really agree there. And one of my favorite picks was Cameron Kitchens at 99. He was the safety for Miami. Had a slow 40, but I think you watch him on tape and he plays a lot faster. And then from there, they didn't have any picks until the 5th round, but getting some good depth pieces there with Brennan Jackson, Tyler Davis, getting a kicker and Joshua Carty, Jordan Whittington, who I think is a sneaky good draft pick, Bo Limmer, and then KT Leviston to kind of round out the offensive line depth there. So with that being said, let's move on to their offensive depth chart here. So starting out, wide receiver, Demarcus Robinson, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington, as I just mentioned, Tyler Johnson as well. And then they have a few other undrafted guys from the last 2 draft classes, but I don't think either or any of them are really going to make a push. I think these are probably the 6 guys that you'll see putting on the uniform come week 1. I like the Jordan Whittington pick. A lot of people at Texas had mixed feelings about him, but I think when you watched him, I think he's just a good complementary wide receiver to what A.D. Mitchell and what Xavier Worthy brought to the table. I think he can definitely carve out a role even on special teams for this team.
If you go look at the Texas offense, and then you go look at this Rams offense, like Jordan Whittington was built to support this offense here. I mean, you got you got a big tight end, a big receiving tight end, Tyler Higbee. You got your number 1 and number 2 receivers, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. And you go slide Jordan Whittington in there as just that 4th guy, just another guy. I think he can be reliable. I think he can come in. I think he's going to be competing with Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell for snaps. But still, I think just having that option, I think he can be a good, reliable piece. He'll maybe get, at best, 400 receiving yards in a season. But because the majority of the passing yards, I mean, probably Puka and Cooper are going to have 1,500 apiece if Cooper could stay healthy, and so Cooper doesn't stay healthy, then Puka could have like 4,000 receiving yards on the season. I'm being hyperbolic, obviously. The thing to me, I'll just be curious about is just normally it's like when you mentioned the offensive line, just how the whole is. Like there's like how this offensive line going to mesh together. That being said, though, it's like I think Jonah Jackson is going to do absolutely fine. I think it'd be curious to see how some of these other guys can develop and maybe just provide some good depth pieces for this team, because this is going to be the starting offensive line unless there's any injuries here. Like in general, this is like probably I'd put this offense up against any offense in the league, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have two good receivers and a good litany of compliments for the third spot.
I think good selling them short.
Well, okay,
I'll be honest, yeah.
Two top flight wide receivers. This offensive line performed a lot better last year than we thought, and that we expect that to continue. Matthew Stafford is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, even though he is, I think, 37 now. So I really like what this offense brings to the table. I also think this tight end room, I was a fan of Colby Parkinson in Seattle. So bringing him down here to complement Tyler Higbee, I think is good. This running back room got more depth as well. So all in all, I think this is just a really, really solid offense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think defensively, it's going to be very interesting as we kind of move along to the defensive depth chart here. So you have Braden Fisk and Jared Verse sliding in already as starters. And so that's where I think it would be interesting to see where those guys do slot in. I mean, losing Aaron Donald is going to be a big piece. And Colby Turner's already going to be there, as starting to tackle. Then you got Byron Young, the two top sack leaders returning. So I'm curious to just see kind of what competition there might be. Because I would think, looking at these, I would say not as familiar with like Deshaun Johnson. And I know Michael Holt had 6 sacks last year. I still think like those guys, I'd probably take Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, especially two working together as well. Like they've played together now for a couple of years. So I think that's going to be, they're going to have that chemistry there. But then also, too, moving down to the secondary, how's Davius White going to look? How's Cameron Curl, Darius Williams? How are all these guys going to mesh together as well? How's Cameron Kitchens going to end up doing, in this offseason? Is there going to be just kind of that slow build before maybe he might take the reins later on in the season if he develops well? I think that secondary and how this defensive line forms together is going to be probably the two biggest question marks for the Rams going into this 2024 season. Because if they can figure it out and they can just be average, improve those numbers that were about 20th up to like 16th, 15th, 14th in that range, I think it's going to really help out this team a lot, especially when they go up against San Francisco, Seattle, and then some of the other top opponents as well when we get to their schedule in a second.
Yeah, I am curious to see how the front seven shakes out. I have a lot of concerns about this secondary. Trey White hasn't finished any of the last 3 seasons due to injuries. A lot of these guys are older, and then I think you throw Cameron Kitchens in that mix, and he's a good player, but I don't know if he can make up for a lot of what they're lacking at this point. So that is, I guess, like my one fault. And there are still guys like Stephon Gilmore out there in free agency that I would love to see them go after. Again, another guy that is older, but he's not coming off the major injury that a lot of these guys are dealing with. So it'd be very interesting to kind of see what they're able to pull together on the back end of this defense. So
I agree.
So
let's it's going to be fascinating to watch. I think here, let's move on into their schedule here, start breaking down some of their games, because it's going to be fun rematch here. Matt Stafford going back to Detroit. It probably will be less. It'll be intense, but less intense, I think, than the last time that they saw each other. But still going to be a great way to start off Sunday Night Football. I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. I think potentially I could see both these teams meeting up again in the NFC Championship. And how crazy would it be if it is still back up in Detroit, if that does end up happening. But then starting off in week 2, though, at Arizona, San Francisco, at Chicago, Green Bay. I'll just say it right now. Don't underestimate Arizona. And because of that, then this is a tough first 5 games. This is a really tough first 5 games. We're going to find out if last year was a fluke or not, or really how good this Rams team is. I don't think it was a fluke. I think they go beat Detroit. They're going to be favored against Arizona, but I'm still saying just watch out for them. San Francisco is a huge game at Chicago. We really don't know how good these guys are going to be, but on paper, there should be really good. And then Green Bay was, I think, the best team in the NFL last year going into the playoffs. And unfortunately, it was just youth that they shot themselves in the foot going up against San Francisco in the divisional round. So they're going to have their hands full, I think, up here for these first 5 games.
Oh yeah, I think coming out 2-3 or 3-2 is probably where they'll be. I am a little curious. I think you look, Detroit explosive offense, Arizona should have an explosive offense. We'll have to see. San Francisco explosive offense, Chicago, same boat as Arizona. They should have an explosive offense, but we'll see, especially with a rookie quarterback. And then Green Bay has a really explosive offense. So this defense is going to be put to the test every time in the first 5 weeks. They have an early bye, which is not good for playoff teams, like I think the Rams are. But getting into the second column here, starting off a little bit easier, Las Vegas, Minnesota on a short week, at Seattle. They get Miami on Monday Night Football, which is good, I think, in week 10. But it is in LA, so we'll just kind of have to see. That's usually where Miami's like teetering on if they're going to do well in the second half of the season. And then at New England, Philadelphia on Sunday Night Football, at New Orleans, and then Buffalo. A lot of games that they'll probably be favored in here. Like even they have Miami at home, maybe not against Miami, but other than that, they should be favored. And then Philly, but they also have Philly at home. So I think they should be favored in most, if not all, of these games.
Much more favorable stretch. And I think if they can come out, as you said, let's even be optimistic, 3-2. I think they should win a majority of these games. I would even like them over Miami. So I think they're more. I think they're a little bit more diverse in their offensive ways. And then Philly, who knows if Philly's going to bounce back, if they're going to be the team in the second half as well. And so the Buffalo also, who knows how good they're going to be. So I think that they're favored in almost all those games as of right now. And then wrapping up, then week 15 at San Francisco, at the Jets, at Arizona, at Seattle. Sorry, hosting Arizona, hosting Seattle. Sorry, which I think is 2 huge things as well, that they're home those last 2 games against the 2 weaker teams in the division. I think that Thursday Night Football game against San Francisco is going to be huge. The Jets, who really knows with the Jets? They're going to be a very fascinating team to watch. So I think a favorable and final 4 games of the season with at San Francisco is going to be tough at any time. So the Rams, they get punched in the mouth immediately with their schedule, but I think it's very favorable from week 7 to week 18 for their next 11 games.
Yeah.
And so, or 12 games, sorry. It's 12, right? Yeah. And so if they can get through there, as we've talked about, 2-3, 3-2, I think they can go on a tear. Injuries is obviously going to be a big. I mean, they have to stay healthy as well. I think they have a much improved offensive line for protecting Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua as of right now. They haven't gone through training camp, but they haven't been dealing with any nagging injuries that we know they've had the whole offseason to get rested. I think if this team comes out and they're fully 100%, it's going to be a fun team to watch. And I think even too, in theory, they could potentially even go 5-0. Like, I'm not taking that out of the realm of possibility in the first 5 game starts. So Rams are going to be a fun team to watch. They're one of my favorites, I think, to make a deep run into the season. I have them at 11-6, and I'll say, spoiler alert now, this Niners video is coming out tomorrow. Actually, no, I'm not going to say what their record is. So go and ring the bell and get notified when that video comes out so you can see how we think that they're going to do. But I think the Rams have a legitimate chance to win this division here. Easier schedule than the 49ers, obviously, because the Niners won the division. But I also think, too, they've made good improvements, I feel, within that front 7 also, too. I think they got good veteran talent in the secondary. Now, they can stay healthy. That's another question that we don't know yet. But offensively, they're going to be much more consistent and not going to be dealing with injuries going into the season, knock on wood. And so I really like their chances, I think, to win this division. If they don't, they're going to be a 5 seed. They're going to be going to or maybe a 6 seed, depending on how it all works out, because that's what they were last year.
Yeah. I had them at 10-7. I still have some concerns over the effectiveness of this defense. I think that they will have a good pass rush, but the back end of that defense and even some of the pass rush, I have some concerns about losing Aaron Donald. You also go look; they lost Raheem Morris as well, the brains of that defense. So I think
and Zach
that is
Robinson as well. He was a QB. He was a QB coach. I'm pretty
yeah,
sure.
he was a QB coach.
Yeah. So now they're both with Atlanta.
Yeah, and so I have some concerns there. I think there might be some growing pains for this defense, especially to start. So I have them actually probably getting behind the 8 ball. After I looked at it, so I had them going 1-4 in the first 5 games, and then they went. What would that be? To get to 10-7,
9-3,
9-3 through the next 12 games. So, like they have a tough start, but they end up getting to 10-7. They make a wild card spot, and I think this could be a primed team to make a late season push, especially if this defense comes on in the second half of the year. So I think the Rams are a really interesting team because this defense is going to be really, really young. And I think this offense is going to be more experienced in the sense of Cooper Kupp is in his 30s. Matthew Stafford is nearing the end of his career. Both of their tackles are I don't know if I know Havenstein is in his 30s, but I'm not sure if Alaric Jackson is. I know he was in 2021, so maybe he's in his like mid to late 20s.
Yeah, Havenstein was 2015 when he got drafted in the second round.
Yeah,
so that's 31 or something like that.
Yeah, 31.
Offensive lineman though, it's a little bit different. I feel than it's players. So those guys have even historically have had longer. It's not like it's new. When quarterbacks play until way too late into their 40s. Offensive linemen have done that for a longer period of time, and so
no, I agree. And like, go look at San Francisco, their rival. Trent Williams is 35. So like, again, I'm not saying like that they're going to like this offense is going to fall off a cliff because of age. I'm just saying like this defense is really, really young and kind of figuring things out. And then they have like barring the guys that they just signed in free agency, where this offense, Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, their 2 biggest playmakers, are both nearing the end of their careers. Because Cooper Kupp came in, he's been in the league for 7 years now. This will be his 7th season, but he came in at like 24. He's 31. So
he's getting there.
Yeah, like he's got some miles on him too with some injuries. So I'll be very interested to see what the Rams are able to do this year. I think they're going to be a really solid team, and I like them going forward.
I like it. No, they're going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a good battle between them and San Francisco for this division.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Los Angeles Rams 2024 offseason. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? What do you think the record's going to be? And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.